so much for having me.
That is Christy Fletcher. She's the executive director at Music Counts Canada. And again, last year it was St. Mark and Mayfair Community Schools. Each got those Music Counts grants. They average out to about $10,000 each. And yes, that means that they can buy musical instruments and keep running music programs. The time now, 18 minutes after 8 o'clock here on Saskatoon Morning. Now, maybe it was called the Odeon when you caught a show there. Maybe it was called O'Brien's. What is now the Coors Event Centre has brought in some of Saskatoon's biggest live shows. And this is a bar along 2nd Avenue South. They're committed to live music there. So I sat down with Brennan Elliott. He's the Coors Event Centre's head bartender and its marketing manager. And I asked Brennan Elliott about his first memory of going to a live show there.
My first show memory would be when I was working here as a porter, picking up cups. I was up on the second level, actually. And I was looking down at the show, and Dan Main performed that night. It was 2012, I believe. And he grabbed his guitar and a stool, actually probably the stool that I'm sitting in right now, and he brought it to the middle of the crowd and then stood on top of the stool and sang. Like, it was like the most craziest thing I've ever seen. It was probably a room of like 700, 800 people, and he was just in the middle of it singing without anything but his guitar, which he actually ended up just putting down and singing for the entire crowd. So it was really cool. And actually, he's a 2-time Juno nominee and 2-time Juno winner. So,
well, and he draws a pretty good crowd. What is your capacity here?
My capacity is 1,000 in this room. So yeah, our capacity is 1,000. We can obviously make it a little lesser than 1,000, but.
Who are some of the most memorable performers who've come through the Coors Event Centre?
Memorable would be having people lining up for 21 Pilots. They lined up in the early afternoon. Actually, I remember my boss, Dana, she ended up buying them pizzas while they were waiting in line in the middle of the afternoon. But yeah, these kids were sitting outside for the whole afternoon to see like their favorite band play, and it ended up being like a sold-out show of 1,000 people. They already had their tickets. They're just waiting in line to get to the front of the stage, and they ended up playing at Madison Square Garden the next day for a sold-out show. So
from Saskatoon to New York City.
Yeah, Saskatoon
Holy
to New
cow.
York, yeah.
What kind of niche would you say that this venue has, just in terms of encouraging like local talent, but also bringing in some of those bigger acts?
Because we are a medium-sized venue, we're the perfect gap between a small room and a large room. A lot of bands end up playing arenas after they end up playing here, which is really cool for us, but also gives like a good opportunity for local musicians. Like last week we had Weapons opening for Theory of a Dead Man, and that was really cool. And with the space that we have, we also give people opportunities in our common room setup, which is a free event space. We're open Fridays and Saturdays, and we often have local performers playing in our space that may eventually play our big stage. So it's pretty cool.
Great. What role does the back alley play for artists?
It's like the outdoor green room, essentially. We often have people just like hanging out there. Saskatoon's a really like kind and welcoming community, so I feel like a lot of artists come here after being in a really big city, and they feel comfortable because most of our fans aren't crazy. So I think people have enjoyed the ability to be able to like hang out and talk to people of Saskatoon. So yeah, the alley often has people hanging out there, and I'm not telling you this to go and hang out in our alley, but it is like the walkway essentially for a lot of them to get onto our stage and also get onto their tour bus. Our old green room is in the neighboring business on the second floor. Actually, we're 13 Pies right now. So one day after like working, I used to pick up cups. That was my job here. And so I was picking up cups, and then I went to go to the green room to clean it up. And I walked into the room, and it was like almost like, you know, when you walk in like a movie, when you walk into like the back of a restaurant, and then in the very back there's like people gambling like mobster style. The lighting was like that. And so I walked in, I felt really weird for one, just like walking in there. And then I walked up, and there's like this giant tray of chicken wings that weren't eaten yet. And so I was like, I don't know what to do with this. So I stood there, and I turned around, and Method Man and Redman walked up and asked me if I wanted the chicken wings. But that's like a good story to like tell you that our space is like we're capable of having like a large act like that come to our venue and feel comfortable enough to perform in such a small setting because they're so used to playing like the large stadiums and stuff like that. But for them to like acknowledge some 20-year-old dude, and I ended up having one chicken wing because I didn't want to be disrespectful, but they were like lukewarm, so they weren't necessarily that appetizing, but the memory is definitely worth it.
In terms of Saskatoon, what do people most gravitate to in terms of ticket sales, in terms of the shows that you know are going to sell out, and how do you see those spaces sort of evolving over time?
I think Saskatoon's like a really, like always will be a really country and rock focused community. But with that being said, I think the music industry is evolving and sounds evolving and production's evolving. And like for our room, I've seen a lot of like pop focused hip hop, pop focused EDM. EDM is crazy right now. We have a really great EDM scene in Saskatoon. As far as alternative rock, you know, we had Half Moon Run play here recently, and that was a really fun show. I think people who really, really, really like the large room, intimate setting with like really, really performance focused music. So I think as production grows and as our space grows, I think we'll have every type of person in here and every type of genre. So Saskatoon is like really, really growing in terms of music. So
Brennan, thank you so much for talking with me about it.
Thank you.
That's Brennan Elliott, who started as the busboy. Now he's the head bartender. He's the marketing manager at the Coors Event Center on 2nd Avenue South. Now, tomorrow we'll take you to Louis, and we'll share some of your best memories of the live shows you've taken in there. As always, you can find us on Twitter. I'm at Jen Q, and our email is saskatoonmorning@cbc.ca.
And the Juno goes to. And the Juno goes to.
And the Juno goes to.
It's the biggest night in Canadian music, with unforgettable performances by some of Canada's hottest